Welcome to Perfect Insights. I'm Mike Harris from Uproar PR. On Perfect Insights, we try to bring you great insights on business and life from clients and friends. For me today, those two merge. I'm lucky to have Jason Siegel, who is president and CEO of the Greater Orlando Sports Commission, who happens to be a client, but much more importantly, he's a fantastic friend. Welcome, Jason.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I like this setting. Are we covering just business items or?
We're covering whatever you want to cover, but I think it's a fascinating story. For me, I've always known the story since you came to Orlando and since we got to know each other. But when I see you with other people from your industry, and I see like the old hockey buddies and that kind of stuff, I realize, boy, this goes back a long time. And so, like, I guess back to college is where you really started to realize that sports business was going to be the thing for you.
Yeah, I went to school. I was pre-med, which didn't last long. I transferred. I switched my major to economics and went into the business school. And I think for me, I had a big pivot in life. I had a chance to, go, from Binghamton University in upstate New York to, go with all my buddies downstate, to the city and work in Manhattan. I had a couple of opportunities to do that. But instead, I thought, boy, it's going to be great. Let's just stay with my internship was with the Binghamton Whalers, the Hartford Whalers minor league team. I basically got to do everything from tickets, PR, merchandise, sponsorship, you name it, game presentation. And they offered me $14,000 to stay after I graduated college. And I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. I love it so much. Thankfully, I think my salary doubled in year 2 and a little bit more in year 3 to actually at that time earn a bit of a livable wage, although the cost of living in upstate New York wasn't too bad. But from there, a lot of doors opened up. Our organization, our affiliation changed from the Whalers to the New York Rangers. It was an incredible experience for me to have the opportunity to be around legends in the industry down at the Garden. Most of the time I was up in Binghamton, but a lot of, training camp and other opportunities for me to interact with, guys like Barry Watkins, who, was a, this legendary PR figure at Madison Square Garden, Kevin McDonald, a number of others there, Steve Mars in the marketing department, a lot of exposure. So it was a combination of American Hockey League, minor league hockey, but also my first taste of the NHL and, the Rangers. I actually left the organization right before they won the Cup. Terrible timing. I left, I went on to work for a number of different organizations. I went from the Rangers, I went to Dallas, we started up the Stars, moved them from Minnesota. And then I went to work for the Los Angeles Kings organization. And then I was the head of marketing for the AA minor league before I got back to the NHL, where I spent the longest period of time with the New Jersey Devils. All of that sort of led me here to Orlando. But, I got this great opportunity to be involved with a number of different organizations, doing a lot of different jobs. And it really prepared me. I didn't think it would, but it really prepared me for what I'm doing now.
And you still ended up getting your Stanley Cup ring and that everybody grabs off your finger every time you go out.
Yeah. It was, I remember being in Dallas with a bunch of friends watching the Rangers win in '94. And I was like, oh man, so close. Should I have stayed? And, ultimately I made a great move to have this great opportunity at the age of 23, 24 years old in Dallas. And then I left Dallas too soon because a couple of years after I left Dallas, they won the Stanley Cup. People will argue that Brett Hull, if you're from Buffalo, they argue that Brett Hull kicked the puck in to win the Stanley Cup. But nonetheless, it all came together a couple of years later in New Jersey.
Yeah. And so I want to get to the move to Orlando in a second, but before I do, you know, when I talk to kids who are coming out of school, who are interning with us, who or potentially interning with us, or like my nephew who's in college right now, and he's like, "What should I major in?" And I tell him, and I don't know, I'm curious to hear your thought on this, because when I was in college, look, I did okay in school, not amazing grades, C's get degrees, but my internship at CBS was so important, actually ABC in college was so important and opened every door that nobody's ever asked me for my diploma, nobody's ever asked me for my transcripts. All they wanted to know is, oh, you've done this, this, and this in the business? Great. So how important are internships?
It was everything to me. You know, my studies were my studies. I actually, at my school, they had never given credit out in a, you know, for internship for, you know, this work that, you know, I was doing. So I was really proud. In fact, many years later, I went back and saw my advisor, my career advisor, and she's like, "You started it all. We never gave, you know, college credit for internships." But it was two things. It was going to do one thing or the other. It was either going to solidify that that was absolutely what I wanted to do, or it was going to be one of those where it's like, there's no way I ever want to do this again. So I think, you know, first and foremost, knowing that that was going to be a passion of mine. I'd always loved sports. I was just trying to figure out how to make that work with, you know, what I was doing at the time, which was, you know, these business classes and economics classes. But I would say that being able to thrive in a business setting and environment where I absolutely love the product. I was so excited to get to work every day. I was pinching myself. I can't believe I'm working in professional hockey. You know, part of it, you know, or professional sports for that matter, because, you know, when we were at, you know, the Devils, it was, you know, the Yankees owned us. We were owned by Mr. Steinbrenner. So it was Yankees and Nets and Devils, and you're getting a taste of everything, arena management. You had concerts coming in. I'll never forget, like, the tour manager for Rush came into our office and said, you know, Geddy Lee's a huge hockey fan. You know, he'd love to, you know, and we made something happen for the band, and their drummer was a big fan as well. But it was all these like incredible life experiences, and I hadn't even graduated yet. I was just, I was doing 2.5, 3 years worth of an internship, and it made such a profound impression upon me. I knew that Wall Street wasn't for me. I wasn't going to go into, you know, actuarial work or the insurance world. I was going to stay, you know, making, you know, 1/5 the salary I would have made had I gone to New York, in this pursuit of, you know, having my career escalate. And I'm so glad that I made those choices, because it really did set the tone. And interestingly enough, one of the one of the guys that I wound up working with, our head coach of the Binghamton Rangers in the early 90s, a guy named Colin Campbell, they called him Soup. Soup is actually going into the Hockey Hall of Fame, which I'm really excited for him and his family. He's got a great hockey family. Soup used to like sleep in the coach's room. He was there with his dog, and I was always at work. I loved being around the rink, and I just built this, you know, friendship with him. And it was him, it was Colin, who 7, 8, 9 years ago gave the recommendation to the New Jersey Devils. And that at the time was the biggest job I'd ever had. I was, you know, basically overseeing sales and marketing for an NHL team. And that wouldn't have happened had I not built that relationship kind of at the grassroots ground floor. So it was really neat that I built that relationship early on. And it turned out that that was the guy that made the recommendation to Lou Lamoriello that helped me get my job in New Jersey, which was a huge door opening for me at 29 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody you talk to, the internship. Like, it doesn't even have to be the White House, whatever. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be the biggest internship in the
Oh,
world.
you make the
Just has
most
to
of,
be,
yeah, you make
yeah,
the
go.
most of the opportunity. And it's, you know, and I think it's, working for Lamarillo all those years, he used to talk about unparalleled work ethic, competency, loyalty. You sort of, build, you build up a skill set, the technical aspects of the job, but you also, build kind of, what, who you are, the culture you thrive in. You start to see where you can operate the best and what types of scenarios. And those usually give you good windows into your future.
You can figure out the job. It's the hard work that you put in. And
Oh, yeah.
so and so I'm guessing somebody saw your hard work and somehow this opportunity to have an ownership stake in the Solar Bears brings you to Orlando.
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to the job before New Jersey. I was the marketing director for the East Coast Hockey League, which was run by a really good friend of mine now, a guy named Rick Adams, who became the chief legal officer for the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee. So Rick, under his tutelage for those 3.5 years that I was with him, really sort of that set the tone for sort of an understanding of how minor league sports worked from the league aspect. I'd already worked for a couple of teams in the minor leagues, but now I got to see how the league operated. And when the time and the opportunity presented itself to put an ECHL team here in Orlando, I had, two pieces had to fall into place. We had an ownership group. I actually reached out to my college roommate and we talked about forming an ownership and a partnership. But also, I knew the inner workings of the league, having worked there from '97 to 2000. So it was a great sort of this, kind of, full circle moment where it's like, all right, wait a minute. I know who I'm buying a franchise from. Now I found, a guy that I went to college with who's going to work with me to put the team in place. It was my first, leap into this entrepreneurial world where, you know, our team making payroll every week, was on our shoulders. It was up to us to make this thing successful. So that's how we got to Orlando. We knew that they were selling expansion franchises in the East Coast Hockey, well, the old East Coast Hockey League. Now it's the ECHL, essentially double A hockey, similar to the way that baseball is structured. So we had this great opportunity, came to Orlando, and it's hard to believe it's 13 years ago, and we did great. We had I was there with the organization as their managing partner and president for the first 5.5 years, and we actually sold the franchise to the Orlando Magic, to the DeVos family. But everything I had learned along the way, every single job I had done in every single different department, was the catalyst for my being able to be a good quality CEO and oversee a business. And really proud of not only the fact that we had a great operation while we were owning the team. The team's still here and thriving. They're doing great. So a really cool legacy piece to have started something that's continuing to thrive in this market.
And so Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer sees you running this show and needs somebody to run the sports commission. And so he gives you a call, and I'm guessing it was something that interested you.
It was. I mean, sort of the conversation with then chairman, guy named Greg Lee, and Michael Ford was on the executive committee, and of course, Mayor Dyer and a number of others. I had sat on their board of directors, so I was familiar with the organization. I was the Solar Bears rep on their board. So I knew a bit about the operation itself, but when we sold the franchise, the question was, well, are you going to go, work somewhere else in hockey? Are you going to leave the market? And my daughter was in high school. I had no interest really in moving her again. I'd moved, her so many times in the past. So it was great that sort of things worked out and everything fell in place. And I was able to take over the Greater Orlando, at the time, Central Florida Sports Commission. We've changed the name since then.
And so that's I guess where I want to go next is you've made a lot of changes, right? There have been a lot of great people who have been at the top at the Greater Orlando Sports Commission, and I think everybody's always very complimentary of. I haven't heard a bad word about anybody who's run this organization, but the thing I do hear that's different about you is that it's completely next level now. And so the changing the name, look, that's I guess kind of where it starts, which is crazy to me that you've been doing this for 8 years now, because it feels like, to me, it feels like yesterday. It probably feels like a lifetime to you.
Yeah.
But but I think the difference that people see now is that you are so involved. And so I guess give me the theory behind that, because I'm telling you, there's not an event that you're not at. There's not a person you don't know. If I call you and say, hey, do you know that? Oh yeah, I know this person. Yeah, I can do. Don't worry, I can make this connection. How important is that you are so involved, so connected, and so uh, I would say an inclusive leader who sort of brings everybody in rather than pushing people away.
Yeah, I think the most important aspect of the job was very simply, it has to be collaborative. I think that the sports commission is a symbol of an ecosystem. We're sort of the we're the people that welcome you in to the ecosystem. So that if you're not familiar with what's going on in Orlando, we want to make sure that we educate those folks. We also want to cheerlead for everything that's going on in our market. Is how do we amplify all of the great things that are going on in the community, regardless of who's involved and how it came together. Collaboration was key. I just saw a great interview with Roger Goodell at the NFL, and talking about how do you strategically plan for the future. And he just gave great answers. It was just the obvious. You don't rest on your laurels. You don't take your foot off the gas pedal. You continue to push forward. And I think for us, it's great that the Sports Business Journal named Orlando the number one destination in the United States. That's obviously something we're going to work hard to retain that title. But at the same time, what's more meaningful is the amount of business we can bring here, the value we can bring to the residents of our community by bringing awesome events here, and then ultimately being good partners with everybody in the community so that everybody can thrive.
Yeah, so that's where I was going next, was this, Sports Business Journal naming Orlando the number one sports business city. And I think back to when you first got, I don't know if you first got to town, but certainly when you first started with the Sports Commission, you and I just met for coffee or something, and you talked about PR and how important it is for the city to be seen as a sports city, for our organization to be seen as a leader. And then very quickly after that, I think you started to rebuild a name for the organization, and let people know that you were leading it. And very quickly, there was an MLS All-Star game here. The Monster Jam is here. The NCAA championships are here. We've got USA Special Olympics USA games here. I mean, the big events just keep coming, to where this year it culminates with the US Olympic marathon trials are here, and the entire downtown is shut down. We have the Pro Bowl here on the same weekend, to where justifiably 2024 naming Orlando the number one sports business city is fully justifiable. And I think it's partially really hard work. And I think you're very cognizant of the idea that PR works.
Yeah, it's crucial. I think that PR means a lot of things, because, and I learned this early on in my career, was the relationship, ultimately between, the organization itself, and then understanding the job of the media and what their job, and being thoughtful in our approach. And it was little things. It was, where are they, where are they sitting? What food are you providing? It wasn't just, it was like a human approach to the relationships that you had with writers and journalists and reporters, and it wasn't. I always felt like I just had these great mentors. It wasn't necessarily always about the anchor. It was, the reporter who was coming to cover, the cameraman, and understanding their jobs, like knowing what they're trying to accomplish, understanding what deadlines they might be on. And, at the core of it all, how could you help them be successful at their job? And ultimately, there's a give and take. So there's the media side of the PR piece. There's the communication and strategic vision for what you're trying to articulate, and the narrative that you're trying to build for your organization. I think that so much of what we do, now obviously it's evolved. There's many more platforms, both linear, non-linear. The effort that we have to make to protect ourselves slash promote ourselves on every front, whether it's a combination of social media and the interactions that go along with that, because that's a whole new world, of course, for so many of us who started our jobs in the 80s. It was vital to me. It was always crucial. The PR aspect of it, the community relations aspect, the amount of storytelling that we were able to do, that we continued to do, the way that we trained the players, relating to their interactions with the media, their now, of course, their own responsibilities when it comes to managing their own social media. It's evolved. It's incredibly complicated. But if you're thoughtful and you take a really solid approach and a strategic approach, I think you can, certainly use those tools to help, shine a big, spotlight, most of the time positive, or crisis manage, some of the negative things that happen, some of the things that are challenges over the years, to where you present yourselves in a way that you can be proud of, those outcomes.
Yeah, and I think now, much more so than when you started. I think organizations, when they're looking to a city, they look to Orlando on one of their first looks, right? I think you've
Yeah.
been able to bring incentives and just put Orlando on the map. And there's a lot more, it seems like, coming with UCF joining the Big 12, and WWE has such a great partnership with you guys, and I'm sure there's WrestleManias and other big events down the road. What are you most excited about in the next few years?
Yeah, Olympics. I think for us, the really key opportunity, it's a combination of sort of an international approach. We're doing more and more work overseas. The neat part about an international event is that usually the economic impact associated with it can be 3 times the amount of a domestic event. Not that we're taking 70% of our business is domestic youth amateur events, whether it's AAU volleyball championships, where we had 5,800 teams in town the last couple of weeks, or Florida High School, Athletic Association, doing high school championships, or, of course, in this last cycle, no other city did more national championships for the NCAA than Orlando did. So we want to be really steady and really good in the 70% part of our business, which is that youth amateur business. But as far as looking ahead to new growth opportunity, I would say prepping for Los Angeles 28 and some of the opportunities that are going to present themselves as we get closer and closer to the summer games, combined with international opportunities. Those are really neat things that our community can look forward to. In addition to the just natural cycle, I always talk about Tetris. You have these cycles that organizations go through where they're looking to book big opportunities, big business. I think that it's probably only a matter of time before the NBA brings their All-Star game back to Orlando. I think that our relationships that we've built over time, and it's relationships that are built on the idea that the stakeholder, the rights holders we work with, we want to make sure that their athletes, administrators, whoever's coming to town, has an exceptional experience. It's really, at the end of the day, it's about the experience. It's about the way you make those folks feel. We are blessed to have this extraordinary entertainment slash attraction community here between Disney and Universal and SeaWorld and Icon Park and so many of the great entertainment options that you have here. When you come to Orlando, the event might be 3 or 4 days, but people are staying for 7 or 8 because they're extending their vacations, they're extending their stays. We have 140,000 hotel rooms in this marketplace, so we have the capacity and the elasticity to be able to handle all that business. But as far as the future, rugby in 31, 33, Women's World Cup for soccer in 31 potentially. Could there be Olympic Games in the state of Florida in the future? What if Tampa, Orlando, Miami, and Jacksonville got together with the state agencies and the governor and all of the local elected officials and thought about a concept of bringing an Olympic game to Florida in the next 20 to 30 years. All of those things are possibilities, and it's just a matter of, I think for us, it always comes down to the proposition, the economic impact proposition, the return on investment. If we take this amount of time, these amount of dollars, this amount of human capital, and put it into a project, what does that outcome look like? Is it great for the residents of Central Florida? Is it great for the residents of greater Orlando? Are these positive experiences that we're going to bring to town? If the answer is yes, and if we have the backing of all of our great partners, then away we go. We march on and get after it.
Yeah, and it's impressive. Look, all the great things that are happening. We're working on with you guys the West Court, the adjacent entertainment complex for the Kia Center. There's a lot going on, and a lot of that has to do with the great job that you and your team do. And one last thing before, I know I've taken a lot of time, is that I have to mention that that the team that you sort of put together, not just at work but at home, with Sarah, your wife, who I've been friends with longer than I've been friends with you.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. Not just the work that you do in the office, but in the community. There's not a charity event that you're not at. There's not your wife runs Winter Park Fashion Week with you, and I guess it wasn't originally just her and her team at work, and then
Oh yeah.
you're now a big part of that.
I'm a small part. I'm in the back.
Well,
So
all of that
yeah.
leads to Orlando's charitable organizations succeeding, and all the money you guys help raise, and so I guess beyond just thank you for what you do for the sports community and for the greater community as well, and it's very impressive.
No, thank you. I mean, Sarah and I are really passionate about giving back to our community. She's been here many, many more years than I have in the community. We're, excited about, so many of the things that are happening and the relationships that, we've been able to make over that time. You've been a great friend. And I think that, it's also just one of those great keys in life is, to surround yourself. Sarah and I make sure to have, a circle of friends. And it's like that old saying, right? You need a great lawyer, you need a great doctor, you have to have, this superhero group around you, because that'll help you in life. And I'm also blessed to have inherited a number of really good people at the Sports Commission. But also at the same time, we've brought on some great new people into the organization. But appreciate the time. Thanks for sitting down and chatting for a little bit.
It was interesting for me too, because I know you from the Orlando side, but to learn to learn the ins and outs of everything else is really good. So thanks, and we'll talk soon.